Young Henry sat by the window, looking out at the darkening sky. The day had been quiet, peaceful even, like any other evening. But when his father didn't come home, things started to feel different. His father was always there, his strength, his steady presence, like a rock in their small home. But tonight, that rock was gone. The house felt empty. Henry paced the floor, trying to make sense of it. Why hadn't his father returned? He wasn't one to just disappear. He always promised to protect him. He was always there for him. But now, there was only silence. Henry tried to shake off the creeping feeling up his spine. His father was strong, brave, and dependable. Why would he leave? Was it something Henry did, or was something darker at play? Could his father have just left on his own, or was something more sinister involved? Henry didn't know, but he felt deep down in his gut that there was something wrong. He had to find out. The night seemed colder as Henry made his way throughout the house, looking anywhere for any trace of his dad. Finally, he stood in the living room where he had last seen him. There, on the floor, lay his father's watch. Broken, cracked, straight down the middle, but still ticking it was. And ticking it seemed to mock him, reminding him how fast time was disappearing. It was the first watch he had ever seen him wear. His father's strength had always been symbolized by that watch. It broke now, and so did Henry's world. He looked down, picked it up, and ran his fingers over the cold metal. Turning around, he saw that the chair his father always occupied was empty, and neither his father's hand was found anywhere. For as long as Henry could remember, his father's strong hand had always been there, lifting him up, guiding him, but now it is gone, just like that, without a trace. Why was the watch still ticking? Why was his father's hand missing? Was it a sign of something terrible? Henry thought of all this. He couldn't put together anything. His mind racing, his thoughts failing to stitch everything together. What had occurred for his father to leave him this way? The truth appeared just beyond his grasp, like a shadow in every corner of his mind. Days passed, but Henry couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. His mother had become distant, her eyes clouded with a kind of fear Henry couldn't understand. He tried asking her about his father, but each time she would change the subject, her face tightening. She wouldn't speak of his father's past. There were only vague answers and nervous smiles. Henry was getting frustrated. She would not tell him anything. His father was gone, and she would not tell him why. What had occurred? What was she hiding? One evening, Henry thought she slept. He crept all the way down the hallway, down to the living room. He could hear low-voiced conversations, his mother talking to someone. Strangely, they were speaking in hushed tones, almost as if they're trying to keep something from him. He leaned closer against the door, straining to hear. "Don't you think he deserves to know?" an unfamiliar voice said. "He's too young, and he'll never understand. We can't tell him the truth." "It's too dangerous," his mother whispered, her voice trembling. "Dangerous." Henry's heart skipped a beat. What could they be afraid of? Why was his father's past so important that even his mother was afraid to speak of it? The mystery deepened, and Henry knew he had to find out what his family was hiding. The next morning, a peculiar letter came for Henry. It was an old, yellowed envelope with no return address, the handwriting on the front shaky and uneven. The moment Henry saw it, his pulse quickened. He tore it open, hoping for answers, but inside there was nothing but a cryptic message written in bold, hurried letters. "The hand is where the truth lies." Henry gazed at the words, weighing the implications of them. What was this supposed to mean? Why would someone send him such a mysterious note? Who knew about the missing hand, and what truth could possibly lie in it? The message made no sense. The hand? Was it his father's hand? What truth could possibly be hidden in something so simple, yet so strange? No clue, No name, only those haunting words. Henry's mind ran wild as he tried to make sense of it. Someone knew more than they were letting him know. But who? And why now? The answers were just out of reach, like a puzzle he couldn't solve. His father's disappearance was slowly starting to unravel in a mystery, but more questions remained than answers for Henry. Henry wanted to find out. So, he began searching for his father. He started with the places his father used to go to the old riverside fishing docks, the quiet bookstore where he spent hours browsing through the books, and the park bench under the old oak tree where they would sit and talk. All were just as he had left them, empty. No signs of his father, no clues to explain his disappearance. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. With each empty room and silent corner, Henry's heart sank in despair. He felt something was missing and that some clue was being missed. There had to be something. Perhaps a small detail that could send him the direction of the truth. Maybe he would find his father somewhere where he never expected. Will Henry ever find his father? What will he uncover next? The answers were slipping through his fingers like sand, but Henry couldn't stop. The mystery was too big, too important. He had to find the truth. Every step felt like a new door opening, but each time he found himself in the dark, unsure where to go next. One evening, as Henry walked home after another fruitless day of searching, he felt something strange in the air. The street was dark, quieter than usual, the only sound the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. As he turned the corner near his house, he caught a glimpse of a figure standing in the shadows, watching him. He was hardly visible from this darkness. Henry felt like his heart was going to break through his chest when it suddenly froze. Was this light a trick? Was that person there, or wasn't he? He stepped forward and saw how this figure moved. It was incredibly swift, as if it just fled further into the dark shadows. Henry's instincts kick in. He did not let this person slip out of his sight. He started running after them, but by the time he turned the corner, the figure was nowhere to be seen. No trace, nothing. Just the dark, empty street. Who was that figure? Was it someone who knew something about his father's disappearance? Or was it someone trying to keep Henry from finding the truth? He couldn't shake the feeling that this person was watching him for a reason. Was someone trying to stop him from uncovering the answers he so desperately needed? Henry couldn't stop thinking about the strange things he'd uncovered so far. But there was one place he hadn't dared to look: the attic. His father had always told him never to go up there. "It's not for you," his father had said, but that only made Henry more curious. The attic had always seemed off-limits, hidden away behind a locked door. But now, with his father away, Henry had no choice but to discover what it hid. One evening, Henry mustered the courage to unlock the door. It creaked as he stepped inside, dust thick in the air. He felt like an intruder, but his need for answers pushed him forward. At the far corner, covered in cobwebs, he saw a large wooden chest. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, symbols Henry had never seen before. His heart raced as he approached it. What was inside? Why was it hidden so carefully? Could this chest hold the answers he'd been searching for? Inside the chest lay more than he had bargained for. Wrapped in that faded cloth, he saw an imprint of a hand large not to question his father. But something wasn't right. Dark, nearly black substance stained the cloth. It felt unnatural on his skin. He brushed a single finger over a handprint, feeling a jolt along the spine. It was deliberate. The final feeling of a message, but by whom? But what was the significance of this handprint? Why was it kept hidden? Henry's mind spun with questions. He had to understand what this print meant, what it was trying to tell him. But the deeper he looked into it, the more confused he became. Why would his father hide such a thing? With the cloth in his hand, Henry rushed down to his mother. "So what is this? And why is it kept locked like a dark secret?" He was demanding the truth from her. His mother's face turned pale upon gazing at the cloth in his hand. Her lips quivered while tears welled up into her eyes. She didn't want Henry to ever know this, but she had no choice now. "Your father," she whispered. "He made enemies long before you were born, dangerous people, and they've been hunting us for years." The words struck Henry like a punch in the stomach. His father, the man whom he had always thought of as an embodiment of safety, had a past far darker than Henry could ever have imagined. Who were these enemies? Why was his father's past suddenly haunting them now? And what had this betrayal cost to their family? Henry had no answers anymore. But one thing was sure: he had to continue following the clues. There was something buried in a place far away, and he was determined to find it. His father's past. He packed a small bag and left in the dead of night, heading toward the location where his father was last seen. The air seemed to grow colder as he approached the location, a sense of dread settling in the pit of his stomach. As he walked closer, the world around him grew quieter and darker. He could feel each step heavier, as if he were being watched. The hairs at the back of his neck rose. Who was waiting for him at this secluded location? What would he find there? Was he walking straight into a trap? As Henry reached the end of his journey, the truth finally revealed itself, shattering everything he thought he knew. His father wasn't just a simple merchant. He had been a key figure in a dangerous network of thieves. His missing hand wasn't an accident. It was a symbol of his betrayal. Henry's father had stolen from the wrong people, and as punishment, he had lost his hand. But he had done it in defense of Henry, because Henry could not be led towards that darkness that had dominated their lives. Henry was standing there in shock. How could his father have done such evil? Did he know that dark part of his father or never? Would he love his father as he loved? Henry now became one among those dangerous webs his father spun through the danger and deceitful betrayal. Can Henry ever run out from this dark world, or has he become an integral part of it? Just when Henry thought the answers would bring him peace, his father returned. But he wasn't the man Henry had known. He was different, cold, distant, and broken. His eyes had lost the warmth they once held, replaced by a hardness that Henry didn't recognize. "I had to disappear, Henry," his father explained, voice grim. "It was the only way to protect you. The enemies I made, they would have used you. You were the only thing worth protecting." Henry didn't know what to believe. Was his father truly protecting him? Or was he just another part of the dangerous web that had already entangled them both? Was his father really safe now, or had Henry's world changed forever? With his father back, Henry was faced with an impossible choice. He could follow in his father's footsteps, take the dark path of lies and betrayal, and join the dangerous world his father had been a part of. Or he could walk away, leave all the darkness behind, and start a new life. The storm of truth had passed, but now Henry had to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. What would Henry choose? Would he continue his father's legacy, or would he find a way to escape it? The future was unsure, and as Henry looked at his father, he could not help but wonder what their next step would be. What would become of them now? The storm was far from over.